Alright, welcome to another painting tutorial. This one we're going to look at Imperial 5th Space Marines. So I started off with an Everland Sunset base coat here, over top of a black base. And what I'm going to do is paint on some Uriel yellow over most of the surfaces. So the Everland Sunset works as a base coat, and this is going to sort of cover everything. Just doing this really quick. For anybody who's new to these tutorials, I'm just going to show this the whole thing at 4 times speed, and I'll just sort of tell what's happening as I go through. I do a little bit of stuff off camera, just because it's really difficult to get everything painted quick, right, exactly how it needs to be, and keep the model on camera. Okay, so I'm just doing the sepia wash here, and doing this nice and deep, getting it into all the recesses, and I'm going to go over all the yellows again. So the idea is to give my shaded areas some nice dark colors, and if I mess this up later with the yellow, I can go back and touch it up, which I do near the end off camera. Okay, so I'm back with Uriel yellow. I've let that dry, and I'm going to try to paint that relatively thick over every area. Some of it needs 2 coats just to get nice even coverage, uh, especially on the big flat areas, because you want it to look relatively decent. I realize these are all battle worn suits, but it is Space Marines, and they're going to look pretty unscathed. At least my guys do. If you want them to look more weathered and torn up, then you can do that however you like. So yeah, trying to get all the surfaces here. Takes a long time to get this on. You want to thin down the paint just a bit so that you don't get any blobs here and there, but that also means it's slightly transparent, so you'll have to go over and do it sort of a second time. Okay, so now I'm taking Flash Gets Yellow, and I'm just painting on any of the edges. Um, because these are just regular troops, I'm trying to get them tabletop ready. I'm just doing the major bits. I'm not going over every single highlight. The idea here is just something that's going to look good from a distance, just to sort of accentuate the yellow, and that's it. So if you wanted to make sort of characters at a higher level, you might mix a little bit of white in with this and do just sort of some really sharp edge highlighting. But for overall impression for your regular troops, that's sufficient. Okay, so now I'm just taking a Baden black and painting the bolt gun there and some of the hoses. So the chest hoses, and there's going to be some on his back as well. And some of this is a bit fiddly, so I do touch it up off camera. And with the bolt gun, I paint over some of the areas that will be getting the silver look to them. Um, but that doesn't matter because I'm doing that right after this. Okay, so any metallic bits are getting lead belcher now, and that's going to be sort of the bolt gun barrel, the clip, some of the stuff at the back of it, a little bit of stuff on his chest, and some of the vents there on his backpack. And I've switched to a slightly smaller brush just so I can get in the details there and not paint on any of the other colors that I've already done. Okay, so next up we have Newland oil, so that's just going to shade all those silver bits, and you want to make sure that everything's dry, which I didn't quite do. So some of the silver did run a little bit, but that's fine. That's a quick step. Okay, there is a purity seal on this guy's leg, so Xandri dust, and I'm going to give Mephiston red for some of the red bits here. So I did the purity seal just the same, just to make it simple. And I'm just doing the edges of his shoulder pads, and I'm going to do his eyes, and that's it. So these guys are pretty simple. If you want to make your guys more fancy paint schemes, then by all means feel free, but this is just to get them on the table and looking decent. So the purity seal, I give it a Agrax Earthshade wash later. So I'm just doing Wild Rider Red, so I skipped the middle red tone for the highlight, and because I'm just doing very, very minimal highlights on that shoulder pad, just to give it a slight tonal variation. I gloss varnish
So that's drying on his shoulders, and that's going to be for the decal. I only needed to put it on one side. Just doing the highlights on the silver after that wash dried, and now I'm using kind of standard gray just to highlight up some of the black bits, just getting that edge highlight there. Nothing too much else on that. Okay, so now I'm putting a layer of micro set down where the decal is going to be. There's my decal. I'm just wetting it with the paintbrush and getting it so it slides. And just placing it on the right spot. Now I'm using micro sol, and that's after the decal's sort of dried in place, and that just helps it conform to the shape. Okay, now this side I don't have the tactical symbol and a decal, so I'm just painting it on, just an arrow, nothing too great, and I do touch it up a little bit off camera. And Mechanicus standard gray just to try to give it a bit of a highlight on the inside there. And that's it. So the decals, it's important that you put the gloss coat down first, and then those microsol and microset solutions really help it conform to those round shoulder pads. They're a real pain in the neck, and yeah, they make a difference on the tabletop because it really helps when you have those decals. Adds lots of nice little detail there. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to check my blog for the paints that I used here. I have them all laid out, and other tutorials, and then feel free to leave a comment if you have any suggestions for future ones or any recommendations or whatever. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.